Have you ever talked to someone who said murder is okay in certain cases? Let's talk about how to respond. Come debrief with us. Hi, I'm Maggie, and I'm joined by Seth and Ethan today, and we're debriefing pro-life outreach. Seth, can you give us an outreach highlight?
Sure thing. So this is an outreach highlight I was thinking about recently for this week when we were at Youngstown State University, and a topic came up that's very important, and that is men and irresponsibility, right? And some people were saying that men need vasectomies because women are the ones who are punished with babies. So abortion, they need abortion. It's punishing women to say they shouldn't have them. Just give men vasectomies instead, right? So it was interesting, though. I responded and said, actually, I think abortion is feeding into male irresponsibility, which is a big topic, but I know, Ethan, you've talked a lot about that. But one response was the real intriguing part to me. One guy said, hey, you're all talking about male irresponsibility. I'll be responsible. Any woman here wants an abortion, I'll pay for it. I'm that responsible. That was how he said we should be responsible as men. What do you think, Ethan?
Negating his own responsibility by supposedly being responsible.
Yeah.
That disgusts me.
That's totally taking the easy way out, doing something hard, maybe spending a lot of money on this, but a short-term solution. He's totally ignoring the long-term responsibility that he should be taking.
Yeah.
I mean, if he got someone pregnant, maybe he shouldn't be paying for the children of anyone who wants to keep their children.
A few $100 is nothing compared to being a dad, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, today our clip is by Elijah, who is a summer intern. Actually, he's coming
Yeah, he's
back.
coming here. Hey, Elijah.
Yeah.
And this was during the summer downtown. He talked to this man who was very interesting because when we're out in outreach, we ask people what they think about abortion. When we talk to someone who is pro-life, a lot of times I'll forget to follow up and I'll just be like, oh, that's great. And then let them go on their merry way. So I would have probably maybe done that with this guy because the first thing he said was, oh, I hate abortion.
Oh.
So I would have been like,
great.
oh, that's
Good.
great. So glad to hear it. Have a great day. But no, Elijah said, or maybe I don't remember if Elijah did follow up right then or if the guy just kept talking. But it turns out the guy does not always hate abortion. So very interesting. This guy was kind of going all over the place with a lot of things he was saying. It didn't make much sense to me. So we'll see if
we'll make sense of it together.
Yeah. But let's start that clip.
Because you're saying that it's wrong to kill a human being if the mother hasn't been raped, but then it is okay to kill a human being if the mother has been raped.
Right.
How does that change whether the being is human or not?
It doesn't have to be.
So you're saying that we can kill an innocent human being?
Yes, we do it all the time.
We shouldn't. We should never kill an innocent human being. We should only kill guilty human beings, right? So we shouldn't kill the innocent human being even if the mother's been
I'm
raped.
telling you, in certain cases, murder is okay.
Why is murder okay?
Murder is okay. Why is it okay to have the death penalty?
It's not murder. If you sentence someone to death,
murder is death penalty.
murder is killing an innocent human being.
But that's the state killing a individual.
Is anyone on death row innocent?
Yes.
Innocent?
A lot of black people are innocent and on death row.
So that's murder and it's wrong.
Murder is wrong.
Yes, murder's always wrong.
Yes.
But you just said murder can be right in some circumstances.
In some cases.
And then it's not always wrong.
So let's draw the line there.
But you just said it's always
Let's
wrong.
draw the line here, though.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brain's fried.
I know, because it's some of the things he was saying, I'm not sure if he meant, when he said it doesn't have to be, I wasn't even sure what he was referring to.
Murder doesn't have to be wrong.
Well, he said in certain cases, murder is okay.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what you led in with the question, right?
Yeah.
That's a very bizarre thing to say.
Yeah. Well, so maybe I forgot to give some of the context. I think maybe Elijah asked him, do you always oppose it? And he said, not in the cases of rape.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying from there, in there, it's okay in that case.
Because abortion is wrong, it's murder, it's wrong, but rape makes murder okay because sometimes murder is okay. And abortion after rape is one of those cases where murder is permissible. That's his argument?
Yeah.
That's what it
Essentially.
sounded like.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he was also getting into capital punishment and saying that that's murder, but he wasn't even just talking about when innocent people are
Right.
killed.
I think his biggest problem was what is murder?
Yeah, he doesn't seem to know what the word means.
Okay, define that for us.
Right, yeah, so murder is when you intentionally kill an innocent human being. That's different than like an execution of a criminal, someone who is guilty and deserving of the death penalty. that is not murder because they deserve the punishment they're getting. When you're innocent and someone kills you, you didn't deserve that. Doesn't mean you're an amazing person, but you did not deserve that specific punishment. And so he didn't seem to distinguish between the two at all.
Do you think he was identifying all killing as murder?
Yeah.
Like, so it's true that killing is sometimes okay, but it's the use of the word murder that's confusing, right? He'd be right if he'd say killing is sometimes justifiable. We would all agree, I think. I mean, I know sometimes people think pro-lifers are opposed to all killing. That's not true. We're opposed to all intentionally killing innocent humans.
Right.
So that changes the conversation.
Yeah, it does.
So Maggie, when you were listening to this, I'm curious, like, what did you think? Like, was this like ringing true to a lot of conversations you've had, like this kind of confusion of definitions, murder and killing? You've probably heard that a lot, haven't you?
Somewhat. I'm not used to it getting so mixed up like that. I mean, generally, I think people understand that murder means unjust killing of humans, but
Generally,
yeah, I'm not sure.
obviously this guy proves the exception
Yeah.
Right.
to that. I thought it was really interesting when he was talking about capital punishment, and Elijah was trying to make the point that murder, he kept asking him, so is murder always wrong, or are you saying that murder is okay in some instances? And the guy was talking about, Elijah brought up death row, and he's like, do those people who are on death row, is that murder, because they've committed crimes which deserve capital punishment? And the guy was saying, well, some people on there didn't commit crimes and are innocent.
Yeah.
And then I think Elijah followed up. It was like, well, wouldn't it then be wrong to put them to death because they don't deserve that?
Yeah.
Which I think just further proved Elijah's point of only guilty people wwho actually deserve the punishment are the ones who should be punished.
Yeah.
And so I think he kind of submarined his own case by saying that, because I think that just ties back into what Elijah was trying to talk about as far as, in the case of rape, has the baby done anything deserving of the death penalty? No, they haven't. They unfortunately happen to be conceived out of less than ideal circumstances, just thinking about it from a farther out perspective. But that doesn't affect their value or affect whether we get to take their life away or not.
No doubt. And I think it's shocking the inconsistency of thought that someone might oppose someone who is found guilty of a crime being put to death.
Yeah.
But be okay with a baby who was created by no choice of her own being put to death for her father's crime.
Yeah.
How does that equate? That makes no sense. That's not equity or equality or the buzzword maybe.
Either one of them, yeah.
No, yeah, it was confusing because he was saying it's okay and murder is okay in some cases, like abortion. But he was bringing up the death penalty. And he was saying it's okay because, sure, we do it all the time. One, is it okay to do something just because we do it all the time?
Right.
Good point.
Two, like you said, he's like disproving his own point.
Let's pause on that first point, because that's really important, Maggie, because I think a lot of people think, it just happens a lot, therefore it must be okay.
Yeah.
And that's clearly bad thinking, right?
Yeah. Most definitely.
I mean, think of an example of that. Like, there are a lot of things that happen frequently, right?
Right.
Clearly they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I think is used a lot is the Holocaust. Hitler killed 6 million Jews. That was a lot of Jews that died. He did a lot. Does that make that okay? Genocides happen way more than they should. Ukrainian genocide, Rwandan genocide. What's the Hoi? No, that was the Rwandan.
The Hutus and the Tutsis,
Yes,
in
that was
Rwanda.
the Rwandan genocide. All of these things that happen where huge numbers of people are killed, there's still tragedies. That doesn't make them any better because of the number of times it happened.
Right, and or even just mundane things like, I don't know, stealing or lying, everyday things, right? They may happen a lot. But I think everyone we talk to would agree, you shouldn't. Maybe I have cheated on my tests in college, but I'm not saying it's justifiable to do that, right?
Yet they still recognize that was like, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly. If the frequency made something moral, it would upend everything.
Yeah.
Thankfully, our system is not built on that. It's built upon a solid foundation of what's right and wrong. We recognize, because of God's nature, who he is. Many people assert it for other reasons, but there's still this common ground with a lot of people that some things really are wrong, regardless of how frequent they may happen.
Yeah. So, Maggie, I have a question for you when talking to people like this who seem to define things differently than you do. We're out on the street. So when you have someone who you're talking to who it seems like you're talking about two different things, or they don't really understand the definition of the word they're using, how do you approach communicating with that person and trying to help them understand where you're coming from and understand where they're coming from when there seems to be this different definition of words.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you just have to get down to the bare bones. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
Of what we're talking about. Just really talk. I mean, not to sound condescending, but just really bring it down to the simplest terms and the groundwork of what we're really talking about. Is it wrong to kill innocent people? Or do you think that humans are valuable at all or inherently valuable?
Yeah, sometimes I think when you perceive the definitional problem, that you see this thing differently, but sometimes the other person isn't aware of that, right?
Yeah.
So you can just say, I think we are using this word in two different ways, right? So I define murder this way, purposefully killing innocent people. What do you mean? And maybe he would have said, I just think all killing is murder, but then you'd at least see, okay, different definitions. Let's dispense with the word murder or something and find a different thing to use. Like, you think all killing is wrong. I don't think that. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So it's so hard. Like, I think that's part of the whole, like, narrating the conversation, right? Like, pausing, so like, let's just take a step backward and think about what's happening in this conversation. You're almost debriefing in the middle of a conversation.
Right.
Usually it's afterward, but sometimes like, let's pause and debrief what has happened so we can move forward in our dialogue together. Have you done that?
Yeah, I found that to be helpful so many times, because when you're in the middle of a conversation, I'll get to a point where I'm like, I'm confused even myself, like what I'm saying. And so I just sort of like stop and step back and sort of just try and do like an overview. Okay, is this what you were saying? Like, is this what you meant by what you said? And then after they repeat it back to me, I go, okay. And then I try and address it again. Because there's sometimes I feel like I go on a rabbit trail and all of a sudden I realize I'm like, I don't even think I'm addressing what they were originally saying. And that's not helpful for anyone. It's not helpful for them. It's not helpful for me. There's not good dialogue and communication happening there. And so I think what you're saying, Seth, about just stepping back and debriefing in the moment can be super helpful.
And if I could just give a commercial for the Debrief podcast, while we're on the Debrief podcast, like, this is what's so awkward about our job, right? Because so we're not just having conversations. We watch our GoPro. We listen to our conversations. I will listen to myself and think, what did I just say there? Like, that didn't make any sense. Or I'll listen to them and think, I literally heard that person differently in the conversation.
Right.
Now that I listen to it again, they were not saying what I thought they said. That's why this is like such an art, and why this is so important for everyone. Hopefully, I know not everyone is doing outreach like we are, but every time you have any conversation, you could just stress yourself out thinking too much about it, but it is helpful, this exercise of debriefing what happened, because it might not be what you thought happened, right?
Yeah.
We have the actual video evidence. It is embarrassing to me sometimes, but important.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I've had that too before, where I listen back to footage. I'm like, oh, I just realized
I missed the boat.
Didn't realize what they meant.
So to everyone who's listening, if I haven't misunderstood you, I'm sorry. Talk to us again.
Yeah, but it is okay during a conversation, if you're confused, to just be honest with the stranger that you're talking to and say, I don't actually understand what you're saying, or can you rephrase that? Or that's
There was
totally
one
okay.
more thing from this conversation. I don't know if you guys caught it. I was a little confused in the end. Maggie, you probably know better than me what he was getting at. He kept saying, you got to draw the line. What did he mean by that? You got to draw the line. I gathered he was saying, like, because some killing's okay, you've got to draw the line where killing becomes wrong, right? Where murder in his mind becomes wrong. Was that what he was saying?
Yeah, I think so. But he was being inconsistent, so it is confusing. Because he was saying, like, the certain cases where murder is okay that he was talking about were the death penalty for guilty people, which, it's not actually murder if the people are actually guilty. And then abortion of babies conceived in rape. And that's the murder that he was saying is okay. Yeah, so he was wanting to pick a line and to say, beyond this point, murder is okay or not okay.
Well, yeah, I think what was striking to me about this, and I love both your thoughts on this, but it reminded me not only of the definitional problem. He doesn't understand murder right, but even if you had the right definition, if you assume that we have to decide where the lines are of right and wrong, it gets really messy, right? And it's true, if we just say we have to draw the line, Ethan might draw it differently than Maggie or me. This points me back to, again, the reason we need an objective foundation of where right and wrong morals come from, and why it's so hard with people, even who agree with us, there are rights and wrongs, but they don't have the objective foundation of a moral lawgiver beyond us, who is God. It would be really hard if we all just decided on our own where to draw the line. It'd be confusing.
Yeah.
I think this points to that, and why we need some foundation for where our morals come from. But when you guys talk to someone like this, who's saying we got to figure out where to draw the line, Has anyone given you a reasonable foundation? I mean, I guess we kind of gather from this guy that the frequency of something makes it moral, right?
Yeah.
So his morals come from what just happens to exist.
Right. Whatever happens the most
Yeah.
is
Well,
what's right.
That's what you think he's saying,
Right.
but then he's not actually. Because
Right.
But you're asking if we've ever ran into people who, what answers they give for why we should draw the line
Yeah.
in a certain place. Most of the time when I run into it, it's just, that's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
There's generally not a, this is what's best for humanity. It's a what's best for me. And I think from our culture, we're a very self-centered people. And that's what you run across the most is people want to make sure that they're protected and they're willing to do that at the expense of others. Some of them
Yeah.
are uncomfortable with it, and that's really good because then you have something to go off of, like, okay, you're uncomfortable with the standard that you even set. Why is that? But many people you run into, again, they're just willing to have that. As long as I'm safe, it doesn't matter what happens to other people.
Mm.
And maybe people don't even realize that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of times because I do the same thing. I go to great lengths to make sure I'm comfortable. And I've been thinking about that recently, like with the cold weather. When I know it's gonna be really cold, I make sure I bundle up and stuff, and then I'm thinking, like, what about people on the street who don't have homes and like, do I care about them that much as I'm caring about myself that I'm not freezing cold? But anyway, like, we do go to great lengths to make sure that we are comfortable, and I think as long as we're comfortable, we kind of tend to forget about others.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, Maggie, and just kind of sums up the whole issue, not only for people we're talking to, but even for ourselves, this issue of being self-centered, and that we can talk about people changing the standard for themselves so that to justify abortion because they're comfortable with that, but at the expense of little baby boys and girls, but also recognizing that we ourselves are not completely innocent of this as well.
Good
And I think
point.
it can be a good reminder when we have these conversations to sort of turn it back on ourselves and reflect internally and be like, okay, this is what they were saying. I recognize that's wrong. Do I see that in myself? Is there any evil thing in myself that I need to root out?
Yeah.
Uncomfortable question, but important.
Yeah. And I think we should always be able to understand where people are coming from.
Yes.
And that will help us empathize or understand. It'll just help us in our conversations with people to understand more where they're coming from.
Right. Yeah.
But how do you think we should talk to people like this? Not everyone we talk to is gonna have the same kind of feelings about things, but this guy particularly seemed to be all over the place and inconsistent. So do you think that we should even try to show people like this where they're going wrong, or do you think we should just try to end the conversation?
So this is really important. I think we've talked maybe season 1 going way back about how to end conversations, but it is really important, right? So there's a lot there. I think what's important, is if you're going to end the conversation, you need to, again, coming back to the whole like narrating the conversation, you need to make sure it's understood as they leave, right? So I would not end it at this point because it sounds like Elijah was asking good questions and the guy was still engaging, even if he was not understanding. But so what I would want to do at this point is maybe you're transitioning to see if the end should be coming by using some summary points like, I see maybe we're not making progress, but again, here's what I think is going on, right? I think that we have these two very different views of what is murder and where the line ought to be. Yeah. So that if you're going to end it, at least he will leave with understanding what happened. And also you want to give him a new thought, right? So you might say like, in your worldview, you are suggesting all killing is wrong, I guess, but that some killing is okay. And that killing being okay would be, for example, if your dad committed a violent crime. That's a really dangerous perspective. I want you to really think about that as you walk away from me. So if I am going to end it, I want to kind of summarize it that way. But Ethan, have you found like good tactics for ending and knowing when to end a conversation?
Ending is something that I am not good at. For me, it's something I have to practice. I need to practice more because I have a tendency to just hang on for as long as I can. It's hard for me to have finality to a conversation and there still be disagreement.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable, but like you're saying, Seth, there are times when that just has to happen because you're not going anywhere. And so it's not helpful to continue the conversation.
What about you, Maggie?
Yeah, I relate to that. It's hard. If I think that there's still an area that I could show them where they're being inconsistent, it's very hard for me to walk away.
Yeah.
And of course, we want to continue conversations a lot of times, but there's just sometimes, rare times probably, more rare than not, that we should end the conversation.
I think you're right, because sometimes it might be unfruitful where it's going, right? Also, I know that we want to always be responsible for taking advantage of the full opportunity in front of us. But we all have very strong confidence in God's providence, right? That it's probably not, in most cases, my job to take this person all the way. So I should go as far as I can, as far as God has allowed me, but knowing that I'm not God's only tool, right?
Yeah.
There are many people he may use in this person's life. And so I just need to go as far as I can with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ethan.
Yes.
When you talk to someone who says murder is justified in some cases, what are you going to tell them?
I'm going to ask them what they mean by that.
Good question.
We've seen from this whole conversation, a lot of confusion arises when you define things differently. And so it is very important in conversations to make sure that you are asking people, what do you mean by that? Even about words, singular words like murder that they use. Okay, I know what I mean. This is what I mean when I say murder. What do you mean when you say murder? And I think that will help your entire conversation. You may still disagree, but it'll at least help you understand how to address what they're saying.
Good point.
Real helpful. Well, that's all we have for y'all this week. Please remember to go give us a 5-star review. We would super much appreciate it. And as always, thank you so much for debriefing with us.